Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Q3 FY21 earnings conference call of PI Industries Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. I would now like to hand the conference over to Mr. Nishid Solanki from CDR India. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Solanki.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on PI Industries Q3 and 9 months FY21 earnings conference call. Today, we are joined by senior members of the management team, including Mr. Mayank Singhal, Executive Vice Chairman and Managing Director, Mr. Rajnish Sarna, Executive Director, and Mr. Rajiv Batra, Chief Financial Officer. We will begin the call with key perspectives from Mr. Singhal. Thereafter, we have Mr. Batra sharing his views on the financial performance of the company. After that, the forum will be open for question and answer session. Before we begin, I would like to underline that certain statements made on the conference call today may be forward-looking in nature, and a disclaimer to this effect has been included in the business performance update presentation shared with you earlier and also available on Stock Exchange website. I would now like to request Mr. Singhal to share his perspectives with you. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Yes, good afternoon to everybody. A warm welcome to everyone for joining the call today. I trust all of you are keeping well in the challenging times. Once again, I'm delighted to inform you we have delivered a healthy overall performance during the quarter. Some quick highlights for the quarter. Our revenues have grown by 37%. EBITDA is enhanced by 48%, leading the robust PAT growth of 61%. As an innovative solution provider to our global partners, PI continues to strengthen its deep-rooted relationships, which is well reflected in our performance. Even though the world was in the throes of the pandemic, I'm proud to say our teams have tirelessly delivered to meet and exceed our customer expectations by being extremely agile in this trying period. Demand of our commercialized molecules continue to remain healthy. As our partners continue to expand their footprints, they seek our support for their own new molecule, bringing an additional opportunity. We have successfully commissioned 4 molecules. One significant event in this expansion of our offerings is into the specialty chemicals, where we will be commencing production in the coming quarter. We plan to start production for our new MPP in Q4 in the fiscal year. The upgradation of the production facilities of Isagro should be seeing completion in the coming couple of months. We are now on track for integration of the Isagro domestic brand with PI with an aim to maximize synergies, and the results have shown significant growth for us. Our plans to be commercializing 5 to 6 molecules in 22, which are currently at various stages of development. In the domestic business, our sales portfolio of products have come up significantly well. I'm glad to highlight that we've advanced the highest sales in nominee Gold and Ocean, led by strong demand scenarios in both rice and crop. Our wheat herbicide, Avkida, continues to report high sales. Treated acreage of more than 100,000 acres so far. We have launched Londax Super Power, which is a rice herbicide, and the initial response has been positive. Our strategic initiatives on fruits and vegetables with our refurbished strong portfolio is continuing to yield results. Our intention remains to launch a couple of new proprietary products over the next year in line in the existing and aimed at contributing a robustness to our sales. Our digital initiatives for customer management and operation to enhance customer intimacy, efficiency, and quality backed by high potential offerings should be instrumental in cementing leadership position in key segments of our presence. This positions PI in a favorable place to deliver growth across domestic and export operations in line with superior relationships and technological offerings. The newly commissioned sites, whereas all supports factors will drive the macro domestically, including good successive harvesting seasons, our exports will benefit from enhanced scope of supplies from existing molecules and newly commercialized ones. We continue to dedicatedly evaluate our long-term opportunities to deploy the funds from the QIP in a suitable decision will be the best taken in account. The capabilities and aspirations of our company will be made and shared shortly. This will dovetail into our pursuit of advanced next-generation technology across our in-house research setups, allowing us to establish new pathways of growth rapidly. As we relentlessly pursue our vision for growth, we continue to invest in talent development and augment our resources in line with the long-term objectives. Thus, with this, I would now like to hand over to our CFO, Rajiv Batra, who will spend time with you to take you through the financial developments. And thank you once again, and over to you, Rajiv. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Good afternoon, and I would like to thank you all for joining us today. The intent is to provide you a brief overview of the financial performance for the third quarter ended December. All comparisons here are with Q3 of last year and on a consolidated basis. In Q3 21, we demonstrated healthy performance momentum, which Mike has already referred to, where revenues improved by 37% to 1162 crores, led by 26% enhancement in domestic operations to rupees 260 crores and 40% growth on export operations to 902 crores. Performance was supported by multiple levers, including prudent raw material management, higher utilization rates, better traction from branded portfolios, as well as greater contribution from ISAGRO. On the earnings front, we were able to enhance our EBITDA by 48% to rupees 276 crores, translating to EBITDA margin of 24%. There was an expansion of 176 basis points on a year-to-year basis. Profits after tax stand at 195 crores, higher by 61%, in line with our better top-line performance and depreciation in line with our newer capacity that we just referred to. On the 9-month perspective, blended revenues grew 35%. Capacity utilization building has almost come back to pre-COVID levels. Exports stood 30% higher, whereas domestic business aided by ISAGRO grew 46%. EBITDA margins came in 206 basis points higher at 23%, and PAT showed 61% improvement to 559 crores. Better operating performance has strengthened our balance sheet position. Inventory levels have increased in line with better demand visibility. Our capex in the first 9 months stood at 320 crores, and we remain on track to invest more in our capacities to realize our vision and growth objectives. Current order book position remains very robust at 1.5 billion, with sound growth visibility for the next couple of years. There has been a healthy generation of cash at 301 crores for 9 months. We also declared yesterday an interim dividend of ₹3 per share. This concludes my opening remarks. Now I will request the moderator to open the forum for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the question-answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handset while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. I would also remind participants to please limit your question to 2 per participant. You may come back in the question queue if you have a follow-up. The first question is from the line of Ritesh Gupta from Ambit Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Good afternoon. Just 2 from my side. One is that you have seen a very strong CSM growth this year as well, and probably was similar last year. And the outlook we see is that agro demand is only improving, and especially the crop outlook is definitely better. So is there a reason to believe that, let's say, your historical guidance of 20-25%, do you think you could exceed that, let's say, in next 2 years? That's point number 1. And then on the domestic side, the growth that you have seen in this quarter, could you just break it up in terms of what is from the ISAGRO addition and how much is from the core domestic business? These are my 2 questions. Thanks.
CSM business, I would stick to the benchmark that we've given for growth. Please do appreciate the base has changed. While the opportunity size is also increasing, no doubt. But looking at the cyclical nature of the business and looking at what we have in hand, we would still stick to our original guidelines there. And having delivered a better base, it also becomes interesting to see what will happen in the next couple of years. So I'm pretty confident that we can maintain that. When I look at the domestic business, we are in a position that today, if you look at this quarter, PI's own portfolio and brands have done very well. That we have driven about 17% brand growth in the domestic businesses, and the other growth has been driven by the Isagro piece of the total growth engine in the total numbers that you see for the quarter, which is about 26%.
Understood, sir. And just the last one on the M&A side, where are we right now? What are we thinking? Any targets in mind?
Rajnish, you want to go for that?
Yes. So on M&A side, we are currently very actively evaluating a couple of options. We have not reached to a definitive position as yet, but we are very actively evaluating a couple of options. A couple of options are on table, and then last one and a half, 2 quarters, we have evaluated few more options and finally decided not to pursue them. But at this point in time, we have a couple of options that we are very actively evaluating.
Got it, sir. Thank you so much, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ankur Periwal from Axis Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi sir. Thanks for the opportunity and congrats for a good set of numbers. My first question is on the new MPP that Mayank did highlight in his initial comments. We're expecting this in Q4, and you also mentioned opportunity arising in the new specialty chemical side. So if you can just elaborate a bit on that side, which exactly is referring to?
Pardon, I didn't get your question. We are referring to yes, MPP. New MPP is getting commercialized, and at the same time, we're getting into specialty fine chemicals. But as you know, these are multi-purpose plants. They're not dedicated to a product or so. And at the same time, the team is working to look at how we can improve the throughput and efficiency and create capacity without really deploying excess capital over the next few years. So with our technological capabilities and intervention that we're taking place.
Sure. And sir, a second thing there, in terms of the molecules which are under synthesis. Now, over the years, couple of years, we have seen an uptick on that side. And if I got your comment right, we have already commercialized 4, and we are looking to launch 5 or 6 incremental, or this is in addition, including these 4 products that we have already commercialized?
In addition to these 4 products, these 5 and 6 will be new products, yeah.
So the total will be, let's say, 5 plus 4, so 9 to 10 products in this financial year. Will that be right understanding?
We've done 4 so far, 5 to 6 in the coming financial year, yeah.
Okay, in the coming financial year. So so my question here was that if I look historically, maybe over the last, let's say, 3 to 5 years, the run rate in terms of the molecules which are under synthesis has been on a steady uptick. From 20-25 molecules, we have reached probably 60-65 plus now. But the commercialized molecules are broadly, speaking in that range of 3 to 4 or maybe 5 to 6 molecules now. Is it just a matter of time, or how should one read into it?
Well, I would not put that number 60 to 70, number one. Number two, I think the scale-up and the molecules that are going into scale-up, the numbers are increasing steadily at a pace, and we see a good pipeline, which could be probably looking at higher rates of commercialization. And sometimes you could have higher rate in one year and less in the other, because as you see, we work in the innovator space, and we also focus on new molecule technologies. So it depends on the regulatory framework and timelines of how the markets are with the go-to-market approach to the customers. So, but we are pretty well prepared to say that we have about 15-20 molecules which need to be commercialized in the next year or 2. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, Rajesh.
Just to add to this, so over the years, this pace of introduction, commercialization of new molecules have certainly increased. I mean, 3, 4, 5 years back, we used to commercialize maybe a couple of products, 2, 3 products. But for last, I would say at least for last 1 or 2 years, we've been able to kind of increase this commercialization pace, mainly because the R&D pipeline and flow of new inquiries have increased over the last 2-3 years. The other change is that the R&D pipeline as well as the products which are getting commercialized have a composition. This composition is also comprising of non-AgChem products. So more towards other specialty fine chemical areas. So that is also a kind of change that we are seeing over the years.
Okay. That's helpful, Mr. Sarna. That's it from my side. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bharat Shah from ASK Investment. Please go ahead.
Hi, Khalid. First one, in terms of our research, chemistry strength, technology, new technologies under development. Also, now we are pursuing the pharmaceutical part more intensely. In the people part of the talent pool, if you can give, without being specific, but if you can give glimpse into the kind of preparedness for the future which is under offering, that will give a good insight into the future. The talent pool, product pipeline, new chemistry, maybe new customers and new technologies. So all of these, if you can give some kind of overview, that will be useful.
So thank you very much. So if I take that, I will give it a try. As you know, technology and these are very IP sensitive matters, and some of them in the potential stages of getting developed and going into commercial phases over the next couple of years. But the lead indicator that you can pick up, the company is practically now covered about 100 odd patents. Some of these will go into play, and some of them will go into play with time. And the company continues to invest in this area in two core areas. One is in the application front, the other is the process chemistry capability build out, and the other is the chemistry capability build out. And obviously we are looking at different ways of doing this. And when I say when we are able to patent, that itself is an answer to say yes, there is something different and unique which is coming up. And that gives us a great sense of delight to say that in the next few years we would be an innovation-led organization. As technology scale up in this business has a gestation period and takes its own time, but we are on that path.
And in terms of the people part, if you can throw light how we are deepening and enriching our talent pool.
Yes. So if you look at the strategic plan, we've actually put together a whole talent development plan, leadership alignment plan. We're working with global consulting firms to look at how we are going to look at organization restructuring from the point of our pursuing our growth opportunities, both from a development side and from a delivery side. We are augmenting human capital into the system. We are adding more capacities of talent in the alignment to our strategic initiatives. A lot of scientific talent pool has been got in. More scientific talent pool is already on board. Already before we are pursuing pharma, we started work in pharma. We have about 15 scientists dedicated with lead scientists in the pharma space. PhDs have gone up. If you look at even the leadership team, there are 4 PhDs sitting up and driving. So it's a clear indicator of our intent to look at bringing knowledge as a key driver and lead the business from a technical front. And to do this, we are putting a robust program where we're constantly putting a high performance management system, which is already there in the company, but also further putting it in a different framework through systems and tools to make sure that as we grow and scale, given the challenges of the external world that we see in India, attrition rates and leadership demands are different. We have been able to put a more stronger system-based approach to developing and bringing in belongingness into the system to deliver high growth. And that's been very well reflected of what we've been able to do so far.
Okay. And my second question is, given that in terms of technology and product and chemistry prowess, we are at a different stage than in the past. Our ambition to become innovation-led organization, deepening of the talent pool, improvement in the size and scale of the business, and hopefully success in pharmaceutical side of the business as well. So in many of these very positive scenarios and actual attainment of robust performance in last few quarters, what are the things that you worry about, and what do you think can be potential risks or the challenges?
For sure, if we look at the risk, there's no risk. Without risk, there's no opportunity. But clear risk is the world is in a very volatile space as we continue to go through this pandemic. Agri has its own cycles and change. Regulatory and policy issues need to be viewed with a different lens, and expectation of consistency in that is another area which I see as a kind of risk. The other risks are more internally driven, and we as an organization at the leadership level are mapping that and making sure that we continue to pre-invest in them to develop. And that can be well answered if you look at the human capital costs, or if you look at even the cost structures in our overheads have grown aggressively. But these are all the investments, because we're not looking to just see for today, but we're making investments to develop them for tomorrow. And that will be an area where we continue to invest in the short term to gain for the long term. So these are some of the...
Just to add to this, Bharat, this overall geopolitical scenario, what we were seeing for last 2, 3, 4 years, and what is now getting changed with these changes of power in U.S. and in other geographies, also sometimes have their own implications on the global supply chains and businesses. So that is another one important aspect that we have to always keep in mind.
And we are addressing that.
Yes.
For sure. That's
okay. Thank you, Salil. Thank you, Sadhana.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rohit Nagraj from Sunidhi Securities.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, and congrats on good set of numbers. So the first question, in our PPT we have mentioned that we are looking at a few of the pharma assets. So out of the QIP money, have we definitively earmarked some portion for pharma and some portion for non-pharma, or is it largely flexible in terms of the opportunity and probably the markets? Thank you.
Yeah, so I take this up. So yes, we have not allocated as such any amount for pharma or non-pharma at this point in time. We are evaluating, some of these opportunities, which also includes pharma opportunities. And then once we get to a definitive stage, then we will know exactly that how much is the amount that we are allocating to pharma, and then to some of these other technological opportunities that we are pursuing.
Sure, thank you. So the second question is, in the last couple of years, if we look at our exports breakup, North America accounts for almost 50% of the exports revenue. Earlier to that, it was predominantly Asian region, excluding India. So has there been any definitive change in terms of the molecules that we are developing or the opportunities that are coming our way, and whether this particular change is only for a geography, or incrementally it will be across maybe Europe, Asia, as well as North America? Thank you.
So the way I would like to answer that, I think we look at the geographical, if you see the historically, yes, a strong foothold with the Japanese companies. We were strong in Asia. Now that we are doing the geographical expansion, as I mentioned earlier, that the various geographies are footprints is being expanded by innovators across the world, and as these go into larger areas of consumption, America, one of the largest markets in the world, obviously will have a larger portion. Yet there are certain other markets in the world where certain footprint expansion is happening by our customers. So geographies would continue to move, shift, and then we get aligned to a global percentage or split of the revenues of AgChem business worldwide.
Yep. Thanks for the explanation, and best of luck, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rohan Gupta from Edelweiss. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, sir. Good afternoon. Sir, couple of questions. First is on our growth expansion plan, where you have initially mentioned that it will be both organic as well as inorganic. Sir, I understand that though you are still screening opportunities in pharma space, but we haven't heard anything much on the CapEx plans or the organic growth plans of the company. I think that with the next year also 20% growth outlook, which you have already shared, we will be sort of capacities for our future growth plans. So are we only dependent on inorganic growth opportunities or acquisitions over next 1 to 2 years? Or we have definite some plans on organic growth also? And if that's so, then can you share that any CapEx commissioning in the near future?
Okay, so maybe I take this. So yes, there are definitely plans for organic growth as well. As Mayank was alluding, there is a rich pipeline, R&D pipeline, and we have a very clear visibility of kind of, commercializing, 12 to 15 products in next couple of years. Some of these products will surely need additional capacity, and we are already in the process of, building new capacities, even beyond the in progress, construction or plants. We have a couple of plants, in next year or two to kind of commission and then fit these products. Apart from building new capacity, the other initiative that again we took at least 2-3 years back is on, basically on engineering technology side, where we are, increasing throughbut of these capacities or existing capacities or newly built capacities. And this is where we believe we'll be able to kind of dramatically improve the throughput from these plants, and therefore will be able to significantly improve capital efficiency of this manufacturing business going forward. But yes, in short, there are very good opportunities of organic growth, and also there are plans to kind of deliver this growth through additional capacity built up and also technologies thereby improving throughput.
Sir, thanks. And second question, sir, is a likely continuation from the same line. Sir, we in our business where the gestation period is close to 16 months to 20 months, we see that best benefit and best ROCs and best margins come when we are effectively or optimally utilizing our asset. I see that in the current asset turnover of close to 2.1x and also EBITDA margins and 24.5% sort of margins, we are probably milking our assets at its maximum. Is it an indicator and that right now our ROCs and margins are their best, and with the increased capex intensity over next 1 to 2 years, because ultimately we have to fall in a capex zone, ultimately we have to get into a building asset zone, and in that time frame the bottom line growth or the ROC definitely has to be lower than what we are enjoying right now, if my understanding of business is right, because that we have seen historically, sir.
In fact,
the technology comes in.
Thank you, Rohan. This is what I was trying to explain, that going forward, number one, growth opportunities and visibility is very much there. Number two, the capex intensity is going to slow down because of this technology initiative that we have taken. We have already kind of realized some benefits in the current fiscal, and we are expecting to realize more benefits going forward in next couple of years as we implement these, some of these technological initiatives in several of our plants and products. So as a result, the capital efficiency is certainly going to improve from here, is what our expectation is.
So in longer term, sir, we can expect that our asset turn will be above 2, and historically which has been ranging from 1.5x to 2x. So should we expect that with the technological advancement in the company and in the product mix, we should be aiming higher asset turn of at least 2 to 2.5x, sir? Will be in that range now, in that zone now?
Yeah, that's the desire and the plan that we are working on.
Okay, sir. Thanks. Sir, thanks a lot, and I'll come back in the queue for any further questions. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Varshit Shah from Emkay Global. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. So my question is again related to the CapEx. So I think you already have one plant coming up in 4Q and another coming up in somewhere in 2Q or 3Q of next year. And you mentioned that you have strong visibility on the growth. So apart from Isagro and the improved throughput and these new commissioning, are there any further plans that you are alluding to, but you at this point in time you have not disclosed because of the fact that you might have some asset coming in through your acquisition, and if this acquisition's timing does not suit, then probably you'll announce further fresh capex. Is my understanding correct? That's point number one.
Yes, you are absolutely right. So there are plans, but number one, the intensity of capex will certainly reduce compared to what we have invested in current year as well as last year or last 2-3 years. Okay, so that intensity will go down, but exactly whether it is 200 crore, 300 crore is what is still in process. Business plans are getting finalized, and also it will also a little more depend on the kind of inorganic option that we finalize on.
Sure. And on secondly, on the utilization levels or circling back on the throughput question, I understand we have to keep a certain room for increasing volume for the customer, typically maybe between 15 to 20%. So what is the optimal utilization levels or for the fully commissioned entity or at the blended level which you envisage and what it is currently at this point in time?
Well, I'm not sure if I have understood your question fully. If you can please repeat.
Yeah, sure. So I believe that in the CRAMS, I think we need to keep some leeway for increase in volumes for the customer. So what is the optimal utilization levels which are possible beyond which it is difficult to increase utilization levels, and where are we currently?
Yeah, so 85-90% is what we consider generally, little more towards 85 in a multi-product plant scenario, because there are several changeovers in the plants and product changeovers and all. And we are working at a little less than maybe 80% or something. But as I mentioned, since we are also working on technological initiatives, so this is also a rolling ball kind of a scenario where, if, for example, if a particular plant was utilized for, say, 85% last year, but because of those technology intervention, for the same volume we are able to do it maybe with 70% utilization, and we are able to get some white space for another 20-30% of white space for some other product or something. So this is what is happening on a continuous basis, the kind of improvement that we are talking.
Okay. Well, thanks for the question. I'll get back in the queue.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Pratik Rangnekar from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Good afternoon. I
Hi, good
have
afternoon.
two questions. So the first one is on the order book. So we have seen our order book being largely stable for the last couple of years, whereas our export revenues have been growing incrementally. There have been consistent commercializations of molecules as well. So how do we kind of reconcile the two scenarios where revenue is increasing but order book is stable, or is there something we're missing here?
Well, let me put that in a different context. I think as we get larger and scalable into products and deeper with the relationships, the importance of order book gets declined, because as you're moving deeper into more higher value-added patented products with the end products, you automatically becomes the interlock with the innovator. So really order books are not I would put that as a top priority, but I think this is pretty substantially in line with the expectation of the asset build-out that we are doing. It's more to cover the asset build-out. And obviously, a give comes with a take. So we are trying to balance this and not really drive it to say that we want to maximize it, yeah?
Okay, fair enough. Thank you so much. My next question is on the so we've seen a lot of exporters this quarter and even continuing into post the quarter as well, talking about a container issue in terms of exports and availability of all of containers and all of that. Are we seeing any sort of impact from that as well, or are we okay on that side?
No, we are not seeing the impact. Yes, there is a challenge. But again, I think we have a good team, as I mentioned, agile, understanding of looking forward to the challenges, addressing them, and making sure we continue to deliver what we need to, yeah? Yes, but there is a challenge of availability and costs in logistics area.
So despite that, we've been able to do the 40% kind of growth. It's not that would have been higher had the challenges not been there.
Yeah, but again, please appreciate that we are not in a large quantity of container requirements, right? The high value, small volumes. So it's not that getting mass scale requirements of containers will become a challenge, yeah?
Fair enough. Thank you. Just lastly, one on the bookkeeping side. On a QOQ basis versus second quarter and third quarter, we've seen revenues are largely stable, but there is a sharp increase in other expenses. So is there some one-off there, or how do we what do we read into that?
Rajiv, you may like to take it.
Yeah, I think we've had some expenses which we incurred on the COVID side, mainly for our employees. And there are other some expenses which, as we look at our acquisitions, certainly there's a cost to them. And as we get closer to actually making that acquisition, some of them will get capitalized as well. So that's a couple of other things, but these are the two major ones.
Okay. Would it be possible to quantify how much or what percentage of
No, at this stage I would not have the details, but most certainly if you send me a question, I'll come back to you with that.
Sure. Well, thank you so much.
Marginal in nature, but yes, this is really where we are.
Thank you so much. That's all from my side, and all the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Jinesh Gopani from Axis Mutual Fund. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. My questions have been answered. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Dhaval Shah from Girik Capital. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, sir. First question on the employee cost. Like historically, if we have seen, it has been in the range of around 7.5 to 8% of sales, while recently it has moved higher. So over a longer term basis, given the investments what we have done in strengthening our team, do we move back to that level, or it stays around here? How should we look at it?
Well, let me put that. There's an answer to this two-pronged answer. One, obviously, there's a higher cost due to COVID management. On the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, the company is investing in augmenting and building talent for future opportunities. And if you strictly study, PI has always done that. We averagely invest, we move. We averagely invest, we move. So this is a phase where we are planning growth and we are entering new arenas, and we pre-investing and we continue to pre-invest in that. So I would say that it's marginal if the other things get well done. This becomes not a challenge to handle.
Okay. And second question is from the presentation where you mentioned one line where successful deployment of analytical tools in one MPP and you'll be deploying into the others. I think this relates to your commentary on the use of technology. So can you elaborate on this? So how is this helping us? Does it reduce our output time? Does it increase our analytical? Like, can you just elaborate more on this?
Broadly, to give it to the larger day, we're developing ideas and technologies in the digital arena, where we're looking to how we basically bring about better efficiencies by looking at data analytics. That's really what we're doing. And which obviously impacts capacity, throughput, efficiency, and ABCDE. So it's multidimensional in the manufacturing of chemistry.
Okay. So, and this is linked to your comment that it will over time increase the asset turns.
Yeah.
Hello? Okay. And sir, just last bookkeeping question. Can you please tell us the 9-monthly number for Isagro's domestic and exports business?
What I can say here, if I can take this question, is
sure.
that on a YTM 9 basis, almost 20% of our growth comes from Isagro, right?
Okay.
So specific numbers I would not want to give you, but
okay.
On a YTM 9 and a domestic space, 20% comes from Isagro.
Sorry, just if I heard it correctly, 20% of the domestic you said, or the overall?
Yes, domestic.
20% of your domestic business is from Isagro?
Yes.
Domestic growth? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
No, that's, let me just correct that question if I get that right.
Yeah.
Growth is from the PI domestic business brand is about 17%.
Mm-hmm.
And the average growth that you've got, the balance is coming from Isagro. Isagro overall as a business on both the ends is contributing about around 10% of the total top line growth, right? As you mentioned in our numbers, yeah?
Yeah. Okay, fair enough, sir. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abhijit Akella from IIFL. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking my questions. Rajnishji, just was wondering if you could, elaborate a little bit on our strategy in pharma going forward. Once we enter that space, are we planning to sort of replicate what we have done in terms of custom synthesis work, similar to what we have done in agrochemicals, or would we have a different strategy, like, for example, getting into maybe some, specialty APIs manufacturing or, something like that? So, if you could just help us understand the strategic direction we are trying to move towards, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Sure, Abhijit. So yes, our aim in the pharma space is also to kind of get to the position that we have been able to reach in AgChem space, over last 2 decades now. Okay. But here, little different from what we started with in AgChem, because in AgChem we started with, pure, contract research manufacturing kind of a model, CRM or CSM model. Here we are starting with the, intermediates and API space basis our technology, driven by our technological capabilities, and also the complementary technologies that we are also looking at, the suitable option, inorganic option that we are evaluating. Okay, so basis these technological platforms, we will start with intermediates and APIs, but eventual idea is to kind of get into CDMOs and kind of replicate the similar kind of model that we have been able to successfully deliver in AgChem space. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, sir. No, that's helpful, sir. And also, just to understand then the second part, in terms of differentiating ourselves versus the other API companies that are already there in India or the world markets, what kind of sort of differentiation strategy are we adopting? Are we going to be more of a niche player in certain specialty segments, or how do we visualize that sort of competitive differentiation for ourselves?
Yeah, so the key differentiator is going to be technology, and as you rightly asked, there are several players in this space, but the key differentiator for us is going to be technology, wherein we will get into less competitive or products where there are less players, complex chemistries. We have a cost leadership. These kind of areas and niche areas that we will finally be, and all this is driven by technology. So that is the key differentiator, or going to be key differentiator for us.
Got it. Thank you so much. Thanks, and wish you all the best.
Thank you. Before we take the next question, a reminder to the participants, please limit your question to 2 per participant. You may come back in the question queue if you have a follow-up, as we have people waiting for their turn. The next question is from the line of Mayur Parkeria from Wealth Managers. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir, and thank you for taking the questions. Congratulations on a good set of numbers. So just to understand the CSM part a little better, will it be possible for you to let us know or understand how many molecules are actually in the synthesis stage and how many molecules currently are in the commercial stage?
Yeah, so I take this. So at commercial scale, we would have some 24, 25 products. And at synthesis stage, we call it R&D pipeline, which starts from lab scale to kilo scale to pilot scale. So this is all its, R&D pipeline, or you may also call it synthesis pipeline. There at this point in time, we will have more than, I think, 40, 45 products. And at any given point, these many numbers of products will be there at different stages. Some are at lab scale, some are at kilo scale and pilot scale. I hope this answers your question.
Right. So, sir, this is just a clarification, understanding more on that is, so because commercial scale, once the product enters the commercial scale, the sales value would be higher than compared to the R&D pipeline stage molecules. So will it be fair to say that a lot of the incremental growth in sales value is coming predominantly from the commercial scale products, in a significant, the proportion, can it be as high as 70-80%, or will it be more like 30-40%? The incremental sales growth.
So just to clarify, actually revenue comes only from commercialized products. Okay, this R&D pipeline, scale up, synthesis is integral part of this whole business model. It is not that by synthesizing we are getting any revenue out of it. I mean, of course, there are some small sample preparations or some small supplies happen, but these are not significant in any case. So the revenue actually comes from commercialized molecules. And the synthesis work right from lab scale till pilot scale is all integral part of winning the business, converting those inquiries into business, and then finally getting into long-term understanding for supply or on PO-based supply for the products which get commercialized. I hope it clarifies.
No service revenue also for R&D pipeline stage as such.
That's not significant. That's not significant, as part of this overall value.
So second question from my side. When you're evaluating M&A opportunities right now, whether it is for technology or pharma value chain, which you mentioned, will it be right that given the strong sector tailwinds and the rise in valuations across listed space and in general for chemical and pharma companies, is it becoming a challenge to get a good player based on where we can make really long-term value proposition? Is that becoming a challenge? Do you see that?
Well, I'm not sure if I've understood your question, but if your question is that why we are looking at this inorganic thing, then yes, I mean, we are not looking at this to kind of support our short to mid-term kind of growth aspirations. I mean, this is going to be a strategic investment for us.
No, sir. What I meant was, is acquisition.
Mr. Parkeria, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but may I please request you to rejoin the question queue for your follow-up, as we have many people waiting for their turn.
Okay, fine. I'll be in queue.
No, please complete your question. This is important. So please go ahead. Complete your question.
Actually, I didn't mean why we are getting that we understand the question. The question was mainly in line with, are we facing challenges with respect to the valuations at a reasonable, given, with a long-term perspective in this space, given that there is a huge uprise in the markets and the excitement about the chemical and pharma chain. Is that becoming a challenge? Is the acquisition and M&A activity becoming a challenge there?
Well, I'll not say this is becoming a challenge, but yes, obviously, when the market or the sector is uptick, obviously the valuations are good. But as I was trying to mention earlier, that this is going to be a strategic long-term investment for us. The valuation is only one aspect. There are so many other aspects. What kind of value creation opportunities that are there by combining our own technologies, and what kind of synergies are there, what kind of growth opportunities could be there if we combine these two set of capabilities and technology. So there are several aspects that we are evaluating in this robust evaluation process. And this is not only valuation thing that since valuations have gone up, we are taking time. No, that's not true.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, and wish you all the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of S. Ramesh from Nirmal Bang. Please go ahead.
Hello. Thank you and good afternoon. My first thought is when you talk about progressing towards becoming an innovator, does it help you get into a more value-added space, and the whole focus on asset turnover will possibly become less important, and you will possibly be able to run it as a business in a normal sense? Is that something which you're aspiring for eventually?
Didn't get the question actually.
Yeah. So right now, if you look at the CSM business, pretty much based on the asset turn and fixed kind of delta on the conversion cost. So when you talk about becoming an innovator company, does it give you more pricing power, or will it still be based on the asset turn and with fixed margins?
When you get to innovator, when you're innovation, you look at what the customer can afford. So obviously, and neither is even today the business based on a asset turn or this cost and that cost plus basis. It is more based on the service and value provision that we give to the customer. Yeah, so that's the way I would put it.
In fact, this is outside in perspective of analyst view of the asset turn and ROCE and all, but from inside out perspective, if you look at it, while we started this business with as the service provider and technology scale up kind of partner, but as we have gone ahead, over the years, these relationships with these innovators have gone deeper and deeper because we have been able to add our own technological inputs alongside the technologies that are shared by our technology or innovator customers. And yes, over these years, at least for last 5, 7, 8 years, we have been able to add significant value to the technological packages which are shared by our customers, and we have been able to put a lot of value on table for our strategic customers. So this is the kind of business model in CSM we have today.
Yeah, understood. And second thing is, you mentioned you're aspiring for 20% CAGR in Jivagro, which means very much doubling your domestic formulation business. So in terms of the resource allocation and the relative sizes of the domestic formulation business and your CSM business, incrementally, do you see both these businesses going at the same pace and the relative proportions remaining the same, or do you see the domestic formulation business increasing its share of the pie?
Well, the way I would like to answer that, the share of the global business will be larger because the other business is capturing the whole globe, where the domestic business is just working in one country, which is India, right? So if you look at that split, where obviously as scales happen, because there you're capturing every part of the globe, and here you're capturing the local part. Although the growth rates will be there, but pie shares will change. But doesn't mean you're going to get marginalized in the domestic business. You'll have its leading position there.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That was helpful, and wish you all the best.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Naushad Chaudhary from Systematic Shares. Please go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. Few clarifications, sir. As of this quarter, how many active MPPs we have, including Isagro? And when we say 2 are in pipeline, does that include MPP 5 and MPP 10, or yeah, that is it. And if you can help me understand the economics of these MPPs. What is the standard capex required per MPP, and what kind of asset turnover do we generate from this?
Well, it's a complicated question, because if you get into looking at understanding the chemistry and process technology, it is looked at a blended basis. Number one, they're multi-product plants. Number two, I think now it's not really Isagro, it's now PI. Just for clarity, Isagro is an integrated asset of PI now. And we have about 15 odd plants, and one MPP is going to get commercialized. And what we have done is whatever asset we took, the acquisition, we've turned that around and turned that into multi-product plants, which will be feeding our product pipeline requirements. Yeah.
So how many active MPPs do we have? I didn't get that. 13.
15.
15. And the 2 which is in pipeline are MPP 5 and MPP 10, right?
No, there's no MPP 5. MPP 5 is probably the first plant we built in Jambusar, which is about 10 years ago. It's MPP 10 of Jambusar, which is coming into stream. Yeah, only one.
Okay. Second clarification, sir, on our QIP of 2,000 crore rupees. Typically, if I see if any business has this, clear expansion plan or have any prospects, so first, they'll have this concrete, expansion or plan or any acquisition plan. Then they'll see their balance sheet, or then if they don't have good money, then they might go for acquisition. So here in our case, we did reverse. First, we raised the money, and then we started actively, aggressively looking for the acquisition. So if you can help me understand the thought process of all this here in this part, sir.
Rajnish, you may want to take that.
Yeah. So again, Sanjay, I have not understood your long question, but the thought process at our end is that this whole, strategic direction to diversify into pharma, this didn't start after raising money. This started 3 to 4 years ago, okay? And accordingly, we started initiatives, firstly at our end in terms of building technologies, strengthening some of these key technologies that we were already working. Also started acquiring customers, building, resources at our end in terms of our research and development, even in terms of, technologies, and also on the market side. So the pharma initiative was taken at least 3 to 4 years ago. One of the example which we shared maybe 2-3 quarters ago is that we were also able to successfully commission and then start supplies of one of the COVID intermediates, that in the last quarter of previous year. Apart from this, we are already working on 8-9 products at our end, in PI, in terms of early intermediates, pharma early intermediates. So in line with this initiative of, or strategic initiative of diversification into pharma, we obviously thought of scaling it up. So one approach would have been to, do all this grounds up, which may take several years, given the regulatory framework and other things. But we decided that while we have initiated this diversification of the initiative we have already taken, let's look at inorganic opportunities to scale up this new business building and then expedite this whole process. And this is the precise reason that we started looking out, and in this process we also kind of raised funds through QIP to keep our war chest ready, because we were already evaluating opportunities, and then came maybe this COVID situation. But for last 2 quarters, we are very actively evaluating several opportunities. We are right now at a good stage in terms of evaluating a couple of them. And the idea is, once we conclude with one of these opportunities, this will help us scale up this pharma, side of this CSM pretty faster than what we would have done or what we could have done doing ground up. So I hope this explains this background and also the strategic intent on this side.
Thank you very much. Before we take the next question, a reminder to the participants, please limit your question to one per participant only, as we have many people waiting for their turn in the question queue. The next question is from the line of Nitin Shakdher from Green Capital. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon to Rajneesh and Mayank, and congratulations on an excellent set of results. My question pertains to specific details on what we've mentioned on 5 pipeline products of the CSM exports which are commercialized in FY21 and 4 pipeline modules which will be commercialized in FY22. Can you talk a little bit about the specific products and the specific molecules and the categories, and how do you envisage this to pan out in terms of accretive growth?
Okay, so thanks. Sorry, I just wanted to tell you that, one, as you know, we are dealing with confidentiality with all our customers, so it will not be very correct and right for us to be able to do that. But broadly, what I can answer, that this is being done in the area. There are about 3 to 4 products of these 9 in the non-agro specialty chemical area. The others are in the agrochemical area, of which 2, 3 are newly innovative products. Yeah, that's really where I would be able to answer best. Yes.
Okay, I understand. Thanks a lot. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is from the line of Sumant Kumar from Motilal Oswal AMC. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. My question is, we have commercialized 2 new plant in FY20. So can you tell us what is the utilization currently?
Yeah, so one of them is running at a more than 80%, 78-80% kind of level, and the other one is still little low, but again in next few quarters will ramp up.
So low, it is below 50%.
Yeah, you can say close to 50%.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Deepak Chitoda from Phillip Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for taking my question, and congratulations on good set of numbers. So my first question is about our inorganic opportunity which we are looking at out of 2,000 crores which we have raised. So basically, just wanted to understand from your side that anyways we have already we were already present in the pharma earlier, and we are aggressively looking at the pharma space and looking at the asset now. So as I understand, we already had a very good relationship with the innovators or our customers who were, apart from agro, they were also doing kind of a pharma, molecules or business. So are we, the thought process of PI in terms of acquiring asset here is to basically again to serve the same customers here?
Well, not necessary. Yes, there are certain synergies which are there, so that could be leveraged at some point. And I think we also have geographical credibility in the markets, which could help us leverage that as an organization, specific in countries like Japan, where we could look at going in, playing with newer band of customers with a more pharma-specific focus. So parallelly, both could be done, yeah.
Sure. And the second part to this is basically, are we considering the opportunities in the domestic market itself so that we can serve on a cost-effective basis and we can basically grow much better? Or are we also evaluating options overseas?
Currently, we are looking at opportunities in India. And more so because of this COVID situation, as you can imagine, it is quite feasible to kind of efficiently progress on these opportunities which are in India, as travel restrictions and other things are also there.
Sure. Okay. And my second question is about the outlook for FY22. Can you just throw some lights towards FY22 towards the domestic side of the business, kind of a growth we can expect, and similarly on the export side or the CSM side?
Well, we will surely come up with this clear guideline in the next quarter, but given our current visibility and also the plans that we are seeing for commercialization of new molecules on the export side and also introduction of several new molecules on domestic side, we are confident of, sustaining this growth of 18-20% in the next financial year as well.
Okay, sure. And any acquisition or asset which we acquired, that will be on top of the growth which we are targeting, right?
Yes.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vishnu Kumar from Spark Capital. Please go ahead.
Good evening and thanks for your time, gentlemen. Is there an outer timeline by which we will complete the acquisition, sir?
Well, our objective is to, do it as early as possible, and we are hoping that we should be able to do it within this quarter. But I would certainly not like to put, a specific timeline and speculate on this.
Okay, got it, sir. And second, on the domestic side, Akira, you have done about 1 lakh acres. Any rough revenue and the opportunity size, because almost 30 million hectares are there in wheat. So we thought it's a fantastic product. So any upsides that you can probably tell us about how much can be the penetration?
So Vishnu, thanks. You asked the question and you answered it also. So 1 lakh acres is what we have done, and you're saying 30 million, so that's the opportunity size. Obviously, some of it doesn't have the disease spectrum of which Akira controls. So given that, it's just in the seeding stages, and we expect that, yes, this could grow substantially in time to come, yeah?
Rough revenue, if you could just highlight how much you've... Very rough.
Because it creates at the back of the envelope calculations, being in the competitive space that one is in, yeah?
Vishnu, we never talk about product-specific revenues or names and all that because of the kind of business that we are in.
Got it, sir. And just one final question. If I'm right, apart from the MPP this year, you will add 2 more in the next 2 years.
Yeah, obviously this plan will get, streamlined and finalized as we progress. But given the current, product pipeline that we are seeing for next 2-3 years, yes, that is one possibility.
Thanks, sir. Other questions have been answered. Thank you. Thanks, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Madhav Marda from Fidelity Investment. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, sir. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for your time. My question was the acquisition that we target to do. You mentioned it's going to be EPS accretive. Just want to understand, will that be the case right off the bat, or will it take 2 to 3 years once we stabilize and then it becomes accretive?
Dear, your voice was not very clear. Can you maybe little distance from your mic because there is an echo.
Yeah, is it better now?
Yeah, it is better.
Yeah. No, my question was that the acquisition that you're planning to do, will that be EPS accretive right away, or will it take like 1 or 2 years once we stabilize the business and then then it becomes accretive to us?
Well, any acquisition and will take little time to kind of start giving the desired and expected results. Integration time will be there, and as I was alluding earlier that our key driver is technology. So technology integration and all that is certainly going to be there to kind of deliver the expected and desired results.
Right now, we're in the process of evaluation, as Rajneesh mentioned, and obviously, our objective, as he mentioned, is to make it accretive. And sometimes we look at whether the synergy and what, and then we can get specific answers to that, right? Is that I think what you're saying?
Got it. And sorry, my other question was, I'm not sure if it's been answered already, but you all mentioned that you all have started supplying to a new specialty chemicals customer. So in the presentation, so is that something beyond agrochemicals or into like personal care or something like that? I wasn't very clear on that.
In personal care, it's into a different area of application. Yes, we're going to the specialty chemicals there by expanding our horizons into different application areas, beyond AgChem.
Okay. Could you specify which industry that would be?
Well, this is more in the additives industry, not in food, but in other additives.
Other additives. Okay. Okay, got it. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rushabh Sharedalal from Praveen Ratinlal Shares and Stock. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for the opportunity. Just wanted to understand that this order book of $1.5 billion, is it a take or pay order? Is my understanding correct? And also wanted to know the cash flow from operations for the 9 months ended December 20.
Well, it's all of, there's not the take and pay is an understanding, but obviously it's not a take. The order book is not a full composition of the take or pay. In certain, yes, but in certain cases, no.
Okay, but what percentage of the order book will be take or pay? If you can just share with me.
I don't have the numbers right now, and would constrain from giving any of the forward statements on that right now.
Okay. Okay. And if you can help me with the cash flow from operations for the 9 months.
Rajiv, you want to take that?
Yes, I think it's given in the press release as well. 301 crores for the 9 months.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's free cash. Or you're looking for cash? I didn't get the question. Rajiv, that's free cash, right?
That's free cash. That's right.
Yeah. So you're looking at the cash flow. That could be much more now.
Yes.
That is what I think we all stated that. 600 something, no?
670, yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Questions? Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ronald Dalal from Ambit Investment. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon and congratulations on the performance. So you had highlighted regulations as a potential risk. So is the farm law, which is centered around MSP for wheat and rice, is it likely to impact your target market or growth opportunity? I understand, like, say, Nominee or Kira, Londex, all of them would be impacted, right?
No,
wheat and rice production.
I don't see any impact of the farm law. That's more to the benefiting the farmer, nothing to do with products. So it's nowhere coming. That is not coming in purview of that, from my understanding.
Right. No, I just meant that if there's any kind of indication that if there's no minimum support price, or will there be less farming of these products, and hence could it impact some of your target markets?
No, I don't think that's going to be the case. I mean, that's never the practice. Actually, is going to be probably better for the farmer. He's going to get a better price rather than get a minimum price. And if he wants productivity and yield and make it to become more competitive, he probably demand more. That's the way I look at it. Because productivity will be a focus, not the input, because the input cost of agrochemicals is a very small percentage of the total input. So their focus is going to be on improving productivity and yield, and agrochemicals is a larger contributor in making that happen with the other inputs. Yeah.
Right. And other than that, so wheat and rice linked, what would be the wheat and rice linked share of domestic revenue, if you have some ballpark number?
So we are one of the large players. We are one of the largest players in the rice segment, wheat, but we don't have the numbers in hand. But yes, we are one of the large players in those two crops, and we're continuing to expand in the other crops. And that's going to be potential for most of the companies because those are the two large agrochemical consumption crops. Yeah.
Sure. Would it be safe to say it's more than 50% of domestic revenue?
I can't say that right now because I don't have the numbers right on hand. Yeah. But typically the industry is in that 40 to 50%, so we should be also in line, if not a bit more on that. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question for today. I would now like to hand the conference back to the management for their closing comments.
So thank you everybody for coming on today. Appreciate the support, and we continue to wish everybody a safe and a healthy journey ahead in these challenging times, and look forward to meeting you guys once again in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of PI Industries Limited, we conclude today's conference. Thank you all for joining. You may now disconnect your lines.